Behold, my glorious supporter Palabragris asks a long question. Let's consider a tier list for a moment. Not any regular tier list, but a tier list that ranks every tier list. A tier list of tier lists. So in this list, the tier list of the most meta weapons in Warframe, because big numbers, is a D rank, agreed. The F rank, and the Driftframe tier list is a solid A, thank you. Just to name some Warframe examples, but this theoretical tier list contains lists from any arbitrary topic. The question is, does this tier list contain itself, and if so, in which rank? This is an easy question. This is an insultingly easy question, at least the first part. Yes, of course it does. It says in the question, a tier list that ranks every tier list. Not every other tier list, every tier list. So it is a infinite looping back on itself tier list that does rank itself, and then has to rank the tier list that is that list but including itself, and then it has to rank that one and that one and that one, and they just daisy chain all the way up. So as long as we don't get stuck in that infinite loop, then I would say yes, it does rank itself. The much harder question is, what rank would that tier list be? Well, just to be clear about our terms here, we're talking about a tier list that is a tier list of every tier list. So not just Warframe tier lists, like every tier list that anyone has ever made. So we got to establish a few ground rules here. So first of all, tier lists are not good or bad necessarily based on the content of the items within them. So it's okay that most tier lists on the internet are not very good. That doesn't matter. That doesn't make the tier list bad. So the real mark of whether the tier list is good is whether the topic of the thing that's being ranked is an interesting thing to rank. And people love tier lists, so that's looking good, right? Another thing that a tier list should do, in my opinion, is be useful. I think if a tier list is just nonsense, then it's not very useful. And a tier list also needs to define each of its ranks. So are there examples in the world, if we have every tier list, of tier lists of every quality? I would say yes. Sometimes you see a great tier list, and I've seen plenty of really bad ones, and I've seen plenty that are in between. Plenty that I thought were kind of helpful, but not the most clear, a mix of the two. Lots that were really helpful, really clear, lots that were not helpful at all. So good, we're good on that front. So far it's looking good. Our tier list contains a topic that is interesting. I mean, subjectively, but like to a lot of people, sure. And our tier list does define its ranks. There are tier lists of every quality. Cool. So that's looking good. What else do we have? What else makes a tier list good or bad? So clarity. Unfortunately, that's going to be pretty bad because there are virtually infinite items, like millions of items in this tier list, because it contains every tier list of everything, like background noise in Zandy's content. That's good. You thought we escaped the construction site. Joke's on you. So I would say that's a mark against it. So I would say, like, we need to rank the qualities of this tier list, and then we'll average them, and that will get us the rank of this tier list of every tier list. So how good is the topic of the tier list? I would say a tier list of tier lists, S, A, B, C, D, F. A, I feel like pretty good. Not incredible. Like, I feel like it's not S. Like, there are better things to rank. But A or B, like A, I think. I'm going to say A. A rank as far as like the topic of the tier list. Good. Now we have the clarity of the tier list. B, right? Like, not the world's most clear. It gets a C at least because it does have something in every rank. Like, it is a full tier list. It is not like ranks that don't do anything or are not useful for something. I guess a rank could be empty and still be okay in a tier list, but not for one of this size. There's just no excuse when you have millions of topics, but it's fine. I'm sure there will be tier lists for F, D, C, B, A, and S rank, so that's good. So yeah, I would say B, like the number of things in each tier means it's probably not going to be the most clear, and you run into a problem you often have with tier lists where if you have enough items in a tier list, the viewer is going to eventually come up with one that they disagree with, and then that makes the tier list less clear. It's not really the tier list creator's fault that the tier list is unclear just because of subjectivity, but the fact of the matter is, if you have a lot of items in a tier list, it will become less clear to the person looking at it what each tier means. Even if you define them, they're just going to disagree, and like they're not going to resonate as well. A good example of a tier list that is like medium in size usually, but is still pretty clear would be like the Smash Ultimate tier list. Has like 50 plus things in it, but it's still pretty understandable because they can spread out among the different ranks, and as long as they are, they're, it's pretty clear. Cool. So I would say it gets an A as far as content of the tier list, a B as far as clarity, like quality of the tier list. Also aesthetically, this tier list will probably look really funny but incomprehensible, so I would say B. And then for the final category, which is basically like how helpful it is, I would say not so great. Maybe a C. Lots of examples is good, but it actually doing something, like a tier list of tier lists is basically useless, so that gets a low rank, and then there's way too many items, so that gets a kind of bad rank, but there are a lot of examples, so that gets a kind of good rank. More than a few examples is not actually helpful, so I would say this one averages out to like a C. You get knocked down pretty far by the, like, this is not even remotely useful as a topic, but what are you gonna do? So we have A, B, and C for our 3 ranks of things about this tier list, so that averages to a B. So the tier list of every single tier list would be in B tier. Does that have any interesting implications? Well, if we have S, A, B, C, D, F, that means the tier list of every tier list in the world is above average on the tier list, which is a little confusing, but there is no middle of S. If you have S, A, B, C, D, F, there's no middle tier anyway. So I guess B and C are the middle. So it's kind of in the middle. Good. That, not very surprising, but good. Nice. I would say the clones, as you go through that recursive loop where now you have a tier list of every tier list, including the tier list of every tier list. So you need to make a tier list of that. That gets, they all creep down the tier list. They all get like B minus, even more, like infinitely approaching being like a C minus, and then they just kind of stop there. So the more loops you go through of that little infinite cycle, the lower the grade gets, but probably not lower than like a C minus, for comedy factor, we'll buoy it above D tier. Nice. And that's my answer. So yeah, that's pretty much the most complete answer you could imagine. Thanks for asking this question, Palabragris. I've been Zandy, and thank you very much for your support.